Today's meeting will have technology. This meeting of the Fox Hill School Building Committee will be held in person at the location provided. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on the agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. The meeting number is 2348-439-7572, and the password is Burlington with capital G.
Yeah, so we're looking for a motion to approve the SBC minutes from May 30th.
So second. Martha, who's taking minutes? Is it Aiden online?
Correct.
So I'll say who I am. It's Martha. And Catherine made the motion.
I did.
Just in case it wasn't obvious.
Mrs. Bond. We're voting. Yeah. Ms. Monaco. Ms. Simon.
Aye.
Mr. Brooks.
Aye.
Dr. Conti. Ms. Costa.
Aye.
Mr. Cuno.
Aye.
Mr. Fagarino.
Yes.
Mr. Denizio.
Yes.
Mrs. Priest.
Aye.
Ms. Bunker.
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Aye.
Did you get Mr. Roosevelt or Mr. Valano?
I don't see either of
Okay.
them. Jeremy is online.
Okay,
He may have been muted by me, so. if you
okay.
wanna-
Mr. Brooks, you want to vote to approve the meeting minutes from the 30th?
Voted aye.
Okay. And I'm an aye, so. 1300.
Perfect, thank you. So the next agenda topic is in regards to our working group updates. And so we wanted to report out to the committee and to the group in regards to some of our recent working group meetings that we've had in the month of June. We had an executive working group meeting on 6/16, and we reviewed the upcoming SBC meetings for obviously tonight and then our meeting in end of June. We met with the communications working group on 6/15, and we discussed the distribution of the community meeting flyer and information about our upcoming community meeting itself. And then we also met with the sustainability working group on 6/1, where we talked about goals, and there's some additional slides that Denise is going to go through next. Melissa, I don't know, did you want to provide any other updates on the working group report out? Or we just want to get into the community input information? Okay. Donna, do you want to talk to this? Sure.
Good evening, everyone. So you can hear me. Can you hear me? All right, thanks. We just wanted to give everyone an update at the Visioning Community Forum. We had asked the community to rank the priorities that were important to them as we start looking at and thinking about the vision for the new school. And we left the poll open afterwards so that additional community members could also, if they weren't available that evening. So what we have received is the poll is closed and that the community feels that the most important priority is the educational benefits for the new school. Site considerations and impacts is second, with equity to the other elementary schools in the district ranked third. And then rounding off, fourth is the building design considerations and impacts, construction impacts, followed by sustainability, cost and schedule, and then operating costs. So we'll take this into consideration as everyone starts looking at the criteria matrix that we'll be getting into in a little bit. So sustainability, it's really an exciting component of our schools, and it's a wonderful opportunity to do wonderful things within a community. And it's actually great for student learning. So we get excited about this. We had a preliminary working group. This is just the very first of a series of meetings to talk about the overall Burlington's goals for sustainability for the project. So what we do know is that obviously Burlington is a designated green community. So what does that mean? It means that we have to adhere to a stretch code, which is any new building is required to be 10% more energy efficient than the updated base energy code. And what that means is we basically have to reduce the overall municipal energy use by 20%. The other thing to consider is that we have a new building code effective July 1, so it's finally here. And what this new building, it's called the 10th edition, and it adopts the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code. So lots of acronyms, we apologize. And what this does is it actually has more stringent requirements for the building envelope performance than the current IECC, which is based on 2015. And then staying along the new, if you remain, I'm assuming you will, as a green community, that we then have to further increase the energy efficiency of the building. So our building code is always a couple of iterations behind, or it lags the IECC, but looking forward to the new building code and what that means for all new buildings really is an exciting opportunity for the town of Burlington. So what we talked about in the working group is goals for net zero energy, or NZE. And we even talked about triple net zero, which includes energy, water, and waste. So we will continue to have these conversations, what that means, what it means to the community for upfront costs, longevity, energy conservation, or water and waste conservation. We'll look at rainwater harvesting as part of the project. And then we're going to consider whether it's an all-electric building or a gas building. So these conversations will continue through the end of the year as to what is the goal for the project. We'll look at multiple mechanical systems for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So we're going to look at gas heat with electric cooling. It will be obviously a fully air-conditioned building. We'll look at air source heat pumps, or also known as ASHP, which will also include a VRF system, which is a variable refrigerant flow, or air to water heat pumps. So those are all electric options if we do an air source mechanical system. The other one we'll consider and talk about is the ground source heat pumps, or also known as a geothermal system, which are the wells in the ground. Our understanding is that Burlington Public Schools Facility Department will be making the final recommendation of the mechanical systems, because it's really important that these systems are easy to be maintained and operational. Any questions on sustainability to the committee? Good. Some other updates that we just wanted to point out is that, again, we're in the preliminary design program, and we met with the school committee. Let me go to the next slide. I can't see this. We met with the school committee last week. We presented the educational program for both the for both enrollment options. So there are two documents to support the educational program as it would impact 365 students and 640 students. And really, this is such an important document because it's going to tell us or inform us the programs that are offered within the schools, the elementary schools, and more importantly, the space that's required to facilitate the programs within the schools. And then we'll start talking about the educational or the program spatial relationships and adjacencies, which is what programs need to be near what other programs to support the entire student. So we presented the educational programs, both of them, and again, you can see it's quite an in-depth program. I know we gave everyone lots of homework and I apologize. Our goal is to be before the school committee next Monday night, the 26th. Thank you. With the goal of receiving their approval for the educational program, as well as the spaces and the space summary required to support those educational programs. So I believe everyone has seen the space summary in concept, and it's been refined slightly as we modified and finalized the educational program. But this is a requirement for the MSBA, which identifies the space needs to support your educational program. And it's broken out into various categories. And I'll just quickly go through them. I know you've probably heard me speak to this before. The core academic spaces are your general classrooms, your science, tech, engineering classrooms, ELL programs, your literacy and math specialists, as well as all the tutors to support the students. Your special education program is quite robust, and I think it's wonderful, the level of effort and support you have for special education in the district. This includes the lab program that currently exists at Fox Hill. What it will also do is bring one of the classrooms that is currently at Memorial because of space constraints at Fox Hill. And then as we started looking forward to a new school, whether it be for enrollment 1 or enrollment 2, the district is finding that the DSC program, developmental skills program at Pine Glen, is growing. And it's actually creating space issues or constraints at Pine Glen. So the thought and ideal opportunity with the new Fox Hill School is to bring one part of the DSC program, which is the high needs students and those support spaces, into the Fox Hill and to the new Fox Hill School, and keep the other half of the DSC program, which is for more lower needs students, at the Pine Glen School. So this gives you an opportunity to provide all of the resources and supports that are needed for all of the students. Art and music is based on MSBA guidelines, which are wonderful size spaces with opportunities for storage and ensemble and practice spaces for music. The health and PE category is for a full-size gym that will fit a full-size basketball court for high school students. And in talking through the size of the gym, the school department feels that having a little larger gym for more runoff space so that you can rent out and use the gym in many ways will be beneficial to the entire community. The media center is designed based on MSBA guidelines. The dining category includes your cafeteria and the stage, so it's a cafetorium. It will include your kitchen, your teacher dining, and a stage. And we are maximizing the available or allowable area for dining to give you the flexibility for either further or future enrollment growth or just having a large assembly space within the school. The medical and administrative spaces support your educational program and the administrators in the school. And then, of course, your custodial and maintenance spaces are prescriptive by MSBA guidelines, but we're confident that these spaces will allow you the space needs to run the building. So your total program, you'll see the first column where it says Fox Hill existing conditions. Your existing school is approximately 46,000 net floor area. That's the area of the spaces within the overall building, the actual program spaces. For a Fox Hill only school, you'll need, I'm rounding, approximately 60,000 net square feet or net floor area. And then for enrollment option 2, you'll need approximately 103,000 square feet or net floor area. So that's just the program needs. And then we need to provide corridors, bathrooms, storage spaces, even the thickness of the walls are then having to be calculated. So we gross up the program area by 1.5 is the grossing factor, which will arrive at the overall gross square footage of the building. So when you look at the existing Fox Hill at approximately 64,000 square feet, you'll see that it really is significantly undersized to provide the program, the spaces to meet your program needs. So for Fox Hill only, we need approximately 90 or 91,000 square feet. And then for a combined school, approximately 155,000 square feet. So that really is the basis as we start looking at the concepts and options and what the overall building square footage will be.
Is that a question? You said a lot of the spaces are prescribed by the MSBA with their figures. Well, I know that the school department has said that they want the larger gymnasium. What would they cover for a 325 student? Like, what would they say, like, the size of the gym should be? For
Yeah,
that
thank you.
one?
The size of the gym, MSBA will reimburse up to 6,300 square feet
For
either size.
either size, okay.
Yes, yep, so they want to provide a large enough gym to support needs for the school, and that the gym will be large enough, it's almost double the size of your current space, so that you can have a curtain and actually have 2 sessions of gym going simultaneously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Donna, I have a question too. Do you know that, so the Fox Hill only dining is actually smaller than current, correct? By about 1,000 foot area. Do you know where that would be coming from?
I think some of it is the kitchen and then some of it's the cafeteria itself, yeah. This and the size of the cafeteria or cafetorium is based on having 2 seatings for lunch, so not that you necessarily would ever do that.
It's a lot of kids in one space, but it is large enough to support half the student population having lunch all together.
Yeah, go ahead. In that combined cafeteria space, is there a way that it could be separated? There's like some sort of soundproof wall or separation?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we're just starting the design process, but you'll see when we start showing some of the options, the intent is that the cafetorium and the gymnasium and the media center would be shared by both schools in the larger enrollment option, right? And that the cafetorium would have one large kitchen to support both schools, but there would be an acoustic wall or partition that can be closed off, so you can have 2 separate dining occurring simultaneously with separate, lines to go in and get your food and everything. So the benefit of that would be that you would have a very large space to have community functions or assemblies, all school assemblies. You would just have to schedule them so you don't have them simultaneously.
Because there would only be one stage.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to be sure I understand this correctly. The dining area is smaller than what we have right now. And so what we have right now is 6,600 feet, right? And so the single school would be only 5,500 square feet, and a combined school would be 8,000. So it's really not much, like it's a little bit bigger than what we have now, but not a lot bigger. So my question is, Jen brought up the gym. How much of a full-size gym would SBA reimburse for? And what about the cafeteria?
So I'm going to try to pull up the existing, I was trying to look for the existing conditions so I could speak specifically to that. Let me pull that up and then I can speak to that. But as far as the gymnasium, whether it's for the combined or single, right, enrollment option 1 or enrollment option 2, MSBA participates in 6,300 square feet.
So we're 1,000 feet over that.
Yeah, so again, preliminary right now. It's good to ask for it now, as our first submission to the state is going to be in July.
Are they apt to agree to pay for more?
No, they will be apt to allow you
to build it
larger
if we pay for it
at your expense. But it's better to ask now and then say later, I think we're good, if you don't want to,
yeah.
Right? So put it in now.
And on the cafeteria, what's their number for that?
Yeah, the cafetorium, I'm going to get the exact, but I think, did you want to say something? Dr. Conti, sorry.
Yeah, Donna, just about the gym is the MSBA number, a high school court can fit on that, but there's not a whole lot of runoff space over the sidelines. So I think we added 1,000 square feet at least initially to have more runoff if we wanted to have that site to be a practice facility for wintertime, because we have limited gym space.
Dawn, I just think it's important to point these things out, because when we found out that the reimbursement probably would be closer to high 20s than 45, this is one of the reasons why making a larger gymnasium. And I'm wondering if you, as you do this, could you point out where
yes,
those are?
The gym is the only space that we're asking for additional space for the Fox Hill only school. Just to quickly go back, for your dining and food service, your kitchen is actually quite large. Your current kitchen, it's over 2,100 square feet, and MSBA states that 1,625 square feet would be appropriate. And we feel comfortable with that. We work well with a food service consultant who will be able to design it based on your requirements. So the current cafeteria is 3,400, and MSBA's maximum was 2,434 square feet.
And some of this is because the single school would be 100 fewer students
It's
anyway.
smaller,
Yeah.
correct, yeah. And for the school committee members, and I think that's also published, the whole space summary is attached to the educational program, which gives you your existing square footages and what your new school will have. It's quite a very large chart, and we're happy to include it as part of tonight's discussion and presentation as well, so everyone can see all the intricacies with that. But Chris, to go back to your comment about full transparency, the other consideration when we're combining the Fox Hill and Pine Glen as one school, that MSBA will participate up to, 2,625 square feet for administration and guidance. Let me do a combined, actually. So they will participate up to 3,235 square feet for admin and guidance, including the administration, the medical, where we're requesting quite a bit more. We're requesting 6,150. So the reason why our space needs are much larger than MSBA's is because we're asking for 2 administrative suites so that both schools can function independently with their own administrative staff, including.
On the single school, the 2,855, does that go over, or is that their number?
That's their number.
Okay.
Yep. So for the single school, right now, the only category that goes above and beyond their guidelines is 1,000 square feet for the gym.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, sorry. I'm not sure, so if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I don't believe the educational program has been posted yet to the website.
No, it hasn't. No.
So we will have to get that up there.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we'll attach this as part of the presentation for this evening as well.
You had mentioned the admin medicals being larger with the shared combined school. In the past, have they reimbursed for that type of stuff, or is that something where we're going to be taking on those costs as well?
So anything above and beyond MSBA guidelines, you'll be responsible for. So for the combined school, we're requesting, what did we say, 6115, and MSBA will be supporting, I know I gotta go back and find it. 2,550 square feet. So you're almost doubling it, or you are doubling it. Yeah. For MSBA guidelines.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the combined. Oh, I'm in the Pine Glen. This is why I should not be doing this on the fly, right? So for the combined school, I apologize, it's 3,235 square feet. It's, again, assuming it's one nurse, one administration, where we would like 2 separate schools, 2 separate administrations, yeah. And I also would like to say that the medical suite, per the educational programs, requesting it to be slightly larger because of the needs of the students, so that it's large enough for a Hoyer lift and for other amenities to support the students.
And because of the educational program, would they cover some of those portions?
Unfortunately, they will not even cover that, but yeah, I know.
Melissa? Just one quick question. What is filtering through my brain, and I just want to make sure that I'm not missing it, is that the reimbursement is apt to be at least a little higher on the smaller school than on the larger school.
Percentage-wise, correct.
Percentage-wise.
Percentage-wise, yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Would the nursing office be shared in the combined school? Will there be 2 separate nurses with 2 separate nursing spaces?
Yep.
Okay.
Everything literally, so that the only shared spaces within the combined school would be the kitchen, cafeteria, stage, media center, library, and then the gym.
Thank you.
Are you studying a fully combined school at all, or we're only looking at, because I know on the original 8 options, there was a study listed as combining completely. Are you studying that at all, or has that been eliminated?
So right now, we're just identifying the higher square footages to submit to MSBA, and once we get through the preliminary design program, and we'll look at the remaining options to be considered, that we can refine those options. But right now, we wanted, the educational program suggests that we have 2 separate schools for now. And we have an opportunity to go back and refine and modify the educational program as we start looking at the options.
Okay.
But this will carry the higher square footage too, so that our costs will reflect a higher square footage.
Right, so if you go back then and look at the fully combined option, that would change your square footage and what would be reimbursable for those spaces that we're requesting overage on, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Steve? Oh, yeah.
I know no one's asking, but I remember when I started learning about the MSBA, I was a little confused about the gross square footage and the grossing factor. And I know it's not arbitrary, so I don't know if it's worth explaining why it's important to talk about the net area right now and how things get grossed up, so folks understand how we arrive at that larger number and how much of a challenge it is to work within the MSBA's framework as you move on and things change.
Yeah, sure, thank you. So as I stated, the program is obviously what shapes and informs the building, but then we have the additional requirements, which include circulation, all of your stairs, your corridors, your bathrooms, and we have toilets that we obviously need to provide for. We have mechanical spaces that we obviously need to provide for. So anything that you can think of, even in your house, when you think of rooms, whether it's stairs or corridors or even your basement, we're not going to have a basement, but even the spaces within your basement, those are not program spaces. They're space required to provide the circulation and the support for the occupants or the staff and students, but it is not spaces that people actually spend time in, right? So the MSBA's focus is making sure that your educational program comes first, that it's a cost-effective solution is second, and MSBA does not want to participate in very large, grandiose entryways or corridors that are so large that, it just generates more square footage unnecessarily. So their goal has always been to make sure that the building meets your educational program, provides the requirements. We have to have so many toilets, fixtures, we have to provide corridors that function, but they really do not want to provide very large, excessively large buildings that don't educationally impact the students. Is that a better way to say it? You want to add?
It's not like you arrived at 1.5 magically. That's the ceiling of
That's
the grossing
MSBA's
factor. So
prescriptive,
you
yes,
start with the program space, and then everything else needs to fit within that 1.5 multiplier.
Yep.
I have a question. John Denizio, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So we talked a little bit about a couple areas that are over the allowable square footages right now, the gym either way, and the medical admin. But Dawn, is it fair to say that those are relatively minor when we're talking about the total rate? Because where we really take a hit will be site max of 8, the square foot max of will be a couple hundred over, and then whatever we decide on FF&E and technology FF&E. Really, that's where the big hit comes.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yes, and we'll have all the costs that will highlight some of the overall cost for the project, but these overages are proportionally small when you look at the overall square footage of the building and then what MSBA will participate in with site. John, they've just changed their reimbursement methodology, so it's no longer 8% site. So for everyone, MSBA used to pay only 8% of the cost of the building towards site, and they've changed that. So now it's $10 a square foot. So they've helped us a little bit, which is great. But you're correct. MSBA recognizing that their participation in the cost per square foot for construction is not meeting today's standards and what the current market conditions are. They also recognize they've never increased their furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or FF&E, or technology budgets that they participate and will reimburse you for, and they recognize those costs are much higher than what they will participate in. So I think going back to your comment, Chris, when you were saying all of those costs, your overall cost per square, your reimbursement cost is not as high as we're hoping it would be. It's because MSBA caps a lot of categories.
Like what?
So the cost for construction is currently at $430 per square foot, including site. I think it was 430, 426. I'm splitting hairs with 426 or 430 a square foot.
So if you're paying more than that,
it's 100% on the district.
But nobody can build it for 430, right?
Correct.
So the reimbursement is not what they claim. It's not, nobody's getting 45. It's
correct.
Much smaller than that.
Yes, and they acknowledge all of that, right? And we'll be getting into the costs.
But did they fix it?
Well, they just did. They thought they just fixed it. It used to be 360. It was 360 or
360 for.
It used to be 360, and they just raised it to I think it's $430, which includes the $10 for site. So
what does that mean?
So the site cost, so you have the building costs, just the actual building, what the cost for the building is. They look at that independent of what it actually costs to prep your site, to build your site, to provide all the site amenities. Their position, it makes sense. I understand where they're coming from. An urban site might have less site costs than, say, a rural site, which may have larger site costs, such as infrastructure or field amenities or other amenities.
Driveways, parking lots?
All of that.
Right?
Playgrounds. Hopefully we would provide a playground in an urban. But yeah, so they have always, again, wanting to put the money in the education, have always capped or put a ceiling on what they would participate in for the site. So it used to be 8% of the cost of the building construction.
Oh, all right.
So at one point, John, I think we had a square footage of 300 or 310 a square foot, I think, for Woburn. So it used to be 8% of the $310 a square foot.
Now it's 10% of
now it's
the higher number?
$10. I think it's
$10.
Yeah, so it's $392 plus 10% of that comes up to $430. Yeah. So now they're saying we're not going to do that. They recognize that capping the site whether it's urban or not urban, really the site costs have gone up as much as construction cost, building construction costs. So
what do they cover for the site now?
Whatever it is, but it's $10 a square foot. Or overall, they're grossing it to just $430 a square foot.
But you're on the right track. The MSBA willingly openly acknowledges that they just simply don't have enough money to fund more on each project. And so you're on the right track when I say, they're doing the best they can to increase but they can't keep pace with just the construction costs and escalation in the local construction market, but they're not trying to fund every school project 100%. And so I think the changes to their reimbursement model is not to try to give districts and towns more money, it's to be fair how they spread that across the districts and towns that they've agreed to enter into the program with. Even though they've reimbursed, I think it's over $14 billion, they know it's not enough to go around. And so they enjoy being able to invite a certain amount of towns and districts into the program every year, knowing that the dollar is stretching less and less every year.
The thing I'm confused on is they've raised the ceiling on the cost per square foot, and they've somehow changed what they'll pay for site. But is that by the square foot, or I don't understand the site, the change in the site.
Yeah, so before, it used to be 8% of the overall cost of the building construction. So,
of what they would pay for the building?
No, overall, but now they're saying $10, which is better than
what is
the 10%. So, what we can do...
$10 per square foot?
Per square foot.
Okay, now I get it. Thank you.
So it's
different.
Better. It's better.
Is it?
It's still not enough.
Yeah.
It's still not enough, but their rationale before was that to be equal, an urban site didn't need as much site work as any other site, which I think over the years they've determined that wasn't really the case. So
thank you.
And we'll have a lot more information when we roll out we'll have preliminary costs at our next meeting, right? That we'll roll it out, and that will help
the 27th?
28th.
Right, so we can help by showing on a line-by-line basis through the budget, top to bottom, where we're over, where we're under, where we think the MSBA's position will be in terms of reimbursement. We know it's not going to be exact, but just knowing how they work with their model, I think we can lead you down the right track in terms of, at least to make some of these big decisions. If we think roughly where the reimbursement's going to come in, and the oversized gym is on the table for discussion, that's one of the knobs you can turn to bring that back down a little bit. And so top to bottom, we can show you where the reimbursement is null or meager and where it's great to help you try to make some decisions. Again, we won't have the MSBA's formal position of that until later in the project once we submit preferred options and detailed costs, but that's one of the things we can do to provide to you to help you make decisions from and give you an idea of where the reimbursement might come out as, so you can understand what other knobs and levers are within the building committee's control and within the town's control to adjust the budget accordingly.
I have one other quick question.
Yeah.
How many options do we have to send them?
We have 8.
But how many do we have to give them all the information for?
So for the preliminary, you're getting ahead of me here. Why don't we just jump to that?
Hang on.
Sure. Sure.
For under the special ed, is that going to include like the break spaces, the sensory spaces that not only special ed students need, but all students may need? Is that going to include all of those extra?
Yeah. So the amount of support that these students require and deserve is exceptional. So it goes from quiet rooms or reflection spaces to occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech and language pathologists, we even BCBAs. So whatever is in your ed program, like these people and these programs deserve spaces. So we're providing resource or learning centers or special educator centers, small breakout spaces so that it's near the students' classrooms, so you can maximize time on learning and just, if they need to be brought out of the classroom, that it's readily available to them. Trying to think, what else do we need? Team chair, psychologist, adjustment counselors.
Along
the
that
list.
line, I actually was going to ask also, what about a space for the special education teachers' offices and for their testing? Is that included in all of that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And we'll publish this too. We literally have gone line item by line item, person by person who's in your school. So it's important that everyone has a home base and a place to hang their hat, and that the spaces are available so that you can actually serve your students appropriately. Yeah, let's just go quickly to the options. I'm trying to think.
Does this gentleman have a question?
We need you to wait till the end. I think Bob communicated.
Does he have a question?
He can wait till the end.
Bob?
What, about this stuff?
He needs to wait till the end.
All right.
Even if it's on an agenda topic?
Yeah. Okay.
So if you just go up a couple of slides, Melissa, here, Christine. Here we go. Okay. So, Chris, to your comment, so MSBA is requiring us to evaluate at least 8 options, right? Various configurations, and we'll get into that. But they want us to look at a base code repair option for Fox Hill, because they're acknowledging, and we've demonstrated that your spaces don't meet your educational program there, but what they want to know is, okay, at minimum, what do you need to do to maintain this building, right? So it's really just, we'll have a cost for that. Pretty sure that it won't, we know it doesn't meet the educational program, and that a whole bunch of other criteria that have been established by the building committee. But it will provide a baseline to say, okay, just to maintain Fox Hill for what it is going to cost you, I'm going to make up numbers, right, $100. To build a new school is going to cost you $200. Right, but at least you know what the investment is just to maintain the school going forward. So to build it, to bring it up to code, and for accessibility. So it really is just a benchmark so that people can understand, well, if we do nothing, what is it going to cost us? So it's base repairs, mechanical systems, making sure that it's ADA compliant, right? Very minor upgrades, and we'll go through that actually. We have a list of what we've covered for that, but that's option 1. Option 2 is for Fox Hill only, what an addition renovation might look like, how does it meet the educational program, and what's the cost of that. And typically a renovation addition, because the spatial relationships and adjacencies of the existing building don't work as well and not as efficient. It's going to be larger on a square footage basis because it just doesn't, we have to determine what stays and what gets removed in this snowflake design. We had some fun trying to figure out which ear or part of the snowflake stayed, because we had to figure that out. Option 3 is the new construction, right? So for Fox Hill, and we have many opportunities for conversations on that. I think we have four options to consider, just even as a starting point there. And then we have to do the same thing all over again for enrollment option number 2. But we have to take that a step further and even look at Pine Glen, what it would cost for renovation addition at Pine Glen in addition to Fox Hill, and new construction at Pine Glen in addition to Fox Hill. So you'll see that some don't make as much sense as others, for a host of reasons, and we can be talking about that next week when we start looking at the criteria matrix and what might make sense. But we have to provide all of these options with very preliminary costs and site plans as part of the preliminary design program to MSBA. And the building committee can say, this is great, thank you MSBA, and based on our educational program, the existing building, et cetera, we don't believe we should further consider a repair-only option at the Fox Hill School because it doesn't meet the educational program. We'll carry it. MSBA is going to require us to carry it as a cost for comparative purposes, but you can say we're not going to spend our time evaluating or considering that option any further. And you can do that for other options as well.
Yeah, I'm confused about why we have two different education plans.
So the overall methodology and programs are the same. So when you read them side by side, there are slight nuances. The introduction of the larger enrollment option articulates that MSB is asking us to look at this enrollment and through the process, the best way that the school department feels is appropriate based on the 4-school model, elementary school model, that we're looking at combining the 2 schools but keeping them separate so that they have 2 separate identities. And that can change if we feel that that's the best solution and that you want to merge the 2 schools into one combined school for other efficiencies or looking at it differently, but MSBA is asking us to. So when you read through the educational program, your teaching methodology will stay the same. Your times on learning stay the same. So much of it stays the same. The differences are solely that it says both schools require an art room. Both schools require a music room. Both schools, require separate entities and administration spaces. So the program itself is the same. It's how you're going to deliver the program within a combined school. So that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of redundancy in the 2, and how you deliver your program doesn't shift.
Thank you.
Good? All right, sure. Let's just go quickly back up to the net zero. I think that got omitted, but we're going a little out of order. Yeah, let's just.
There is a net zero.
Yeah, it should have just been up at the other. That's okay. Yeah. So the only other thing too that we wanted to bring before we get into the good stuff, which is we're excited to start looking at options, is just bringing everyone up to date where we are with the traffic studies. So our preliminary findings show that we studied the 2 intersections, Fox Hill and Westwood and Wilmington, and I promise we are hearing everyone, and we understand the congestion and the cut-throughs, the way people are trying to navigate the streets in and around Fox Hill. But these 2 were the major intersections, and it was important for us to understand what type of traffic actually flows through those intersections. So we obtained data collection. It was for a 24-hour?
Yeah, one day.
24 hours, one day of data collection, and it included vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians, right? So the traffic world grades, just like schools grades A through actually F. And they have an E in there too, though, unlike for whatever reason, we never had an E in school. But so the intersections, when you look at them, they actually have a high grade for the level of service based on the conditions and the overall traffic that flows through the intersections. We recognize there are pinch points, which is the arrival and departure, but we also understand that the people during those very short windows of time create, from what we're hearing, unsafe conditions. But overall, what we're hearing is that they both have very high graded level of service. We'll be issuing the reports shortly, right? I think it was an A or a B.
They're mostly A's. Yeah.
Mostly A's. And that the average traffic speed is 30 to 32 miles per hour. And what we've witnessed, average, and what we, this is, people studying it for the full day, that the longest traffic queue was 2 cars. And it was during a school day, so I don't want anyone to think that it was any other day. And that we did hear some really emotional and compelling story, I don't want to say stories, but narratives, but what they found was the vehicle crash data reviews, that there have been 6 crashes over the last 5 years, and 3 of them were single car accidents. So we just want to point that out, but we're not diminishing, and especially we have some additional information to share. But what was pointed out as part of the traffic study was that really absolutely should update the school zone and crosswalk signals and striping to meet current standards. So those are older under previous recommendations or standards. To add crosswalks and signage at Fox Hill and Vincent, as well as Westwood and Richard. Widen the existing sidewalks to 8 feet to accommodate bikes and walkers. Create a buffer space between sidewalks and roadways, whether that's an extra strip of curbing or something a little bit wider, so that students or children aren't immediately abutting the street. And then that was the buffer space between sidewalks and roadways, and then add traffic calming measures. So I had immediately, you'll probably start Googling, chicanes. What the heck is a chicane or a choker? These all sound awful. Curb extensions, median islands, or narrow travel lanes. So these are just calming measures. A chicane is kind of a
right and the left.
A right and a left, but on the same street, and adding curves within the street so that it's not one long drag. Another option was, chokers, which is very similar, but you bump out the sidewalks so that it prevents people from or curb extensions. So these are all suggestions or recommendations, but even before this, we want to go to the next slide. The town is aware, and Melissa in particular, if you would like to speak to it, but the town's aware of the conditions at Fox Hills. So some town planned improvements are new signs and lines at the Fox Hill School. DPW will be taking care of that. Flashing lights at crosswalks, that's pending, but that would be through Safe Routes to School. Update signage at mid-block crosswalks and restriping. Again, a DPW will be taking that initiative. And then new sidewalks, which is through a town capital project, that it will occur down the road, 2029, 2030, but that's also identified and understanding that these are requirements. And then also rehab existing sidewalks on or about between 2023 and 26, depending on where the neighborhoods or sidewalks fall around Fox Hill. I don't know if there's anything to add. You've been quite an advocate for it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I want to caveat that the flashing lights at the crosswalk is pending a successful award of a grant. So not a guarantee, but one thing that we've been working for. I think we signed onto Safe Routes in 2021. We did win a grant that's being completed, I think, tomorrow morning. I'm supposed to be there for the signs and lines on the Fox Hill property. We are creating a Safe Routes to School task force over the summer at Fox Hill to we've been fairly active with Safe Routes, so like we hear you, we don't want any students harmed getting to or from school today, whether or not whatever we do in the future. So we're working on all of those things. And then, yeah, the town is working on sidewalks. I'm working pretty closely with Brian at the DPW to look at where these fall and how they would fall in. We'll publish this map so folks on the phone can see better what the work scheduled to be done is.
And I think I would just like to point out that typically any work done outside of the kind of footprint of the site or the site itself is typically not included in these projects, but that would be up to the town. If you want to extend the boundaries of the project, you would, I'm pretty sure, exceed MSBA's reimbursement of $10 a square foot for site, but if you felt that that was important requirement for the project, that we've gone beyond the boundaries of the site.
Just those last 2 or 3 slides, can you make sure we get copies of those? Or are you going to post those?
Yeah.
Because they weren't within the presentation I have.
I don't know if maybe just an update the presentation
We're
on
on
there.
slide
but I know
9.
other people
Slide 9.
Yeah, it's not, it's like, I don't see it.
Yes, we'll make
get it.
sure.
Yeah,
We'll make sure.
that
Thank you.
Did you
updated
download that
properly on the MSBA link.
recently?
And then following
Friday?
tonight's meeting, we'll make
Just
sure that
now.
it's also up on our project website as well.
All right. So, yeah, so those were to respond to. So I apologize. I'm going to jump just back one more. Yep, let's just go to that slide. So in responding to or talking about sustainability and energy performance for the building and recognizing it's important to everyone to provide and design for high-performing buildings. Just to, you'll hear us talk a lot about it. It's an important design parameter and feature, and we're looking to understand what Burlington's full goals are for your high-performing building. But with every project, what our goal is to provide a building that is designed extremely energy efficiently in such a way that it has the lowest what's called energy use index, or EUI, which is a formula. It's kBTU per square foot per year, but that's the measurement that's used as you start looking at how much energy a building uses. And if we can get the building down to 25 or less EUI, and we can talk through the steps, I think it would be helpful to have a whole separate sustainability conversation, but we just want you to know we're thinking about it now, that typically with 25 or less EUI, we can provide you with a building that what's called net zero ready, and whether renewable energy is included as part of the project, whether, it's typically provided by solar panels, whether it's on the roof or canopies in a parking lot, whether that's part of the project or it's a different town initiative after, we'll have the building ready to support that. So we will be spending, not today, but we will be spending a lot of time understanding the usage of the building, what the town's goals are for a sustainable building and sustainable design. It's really important. And then just to add to that, ways of reducing energy use or strategies to have a very low EUI, reducing plug-in lighting loads and improving the envelope, making sure that the building has as much insulation with the right types of windows, and making sure that the thermal components of the building are designed in such a way that it is as tight of a building as possible. We want to talk about making sure that we can take advantage of the site. So the building orientation of the site is important. So if you have north and south-facing windows, you're able to manage the glare and daylighting coming in, so on a very hot day, you won't need as much energy to cool the building. And it also allows you to use less internal light because you'll have all the natural light coming in and you won't need to pull the shades down, so that's a benefit. So the orientation on a building is really important. Maximizing efficiency, and we'll be having a lot of conversations about what equipment makes the most sense for this building, and we'll go through that. We'll talk about life cycle cost analysis as we look at all of the equipment, but equally important is making sure that it's not overly sophisticated, so the district is going to not be able to maintain and take care of the systems. And then again, renewable energy, and start having those conversations. What is the goal of the town? What if there are other initiatives in town? But looking at ways to generate enough energy on the site to meet the EUI, or the energy demands of the building itself. So we'll be having a lot of conversations. This just kind of tied into our sustainability working group meeting that we had. So you'll see these slides a little out of context and wonder why they're here. So, okay. We good? All right. So we talked about we have to look at the 8 options, and we're actually pretty excited to start talking about options. But we said we're going to have a cost estimate at the next building committee meeting, and what we needed to do, we have a third-party independent cost estimator that works with many school designers and owners project managers that understands the public construction market for K through 12 schools and specifically MSBA. But we had to give them a basis of design. Now, we don't have a design yet. We know what the square footage is, right? We have an idea of the type of systems that we want to achieve, and there's no way I'm going to be able to read this. But this will, this looks like the old one. I had sent an updated one, but that's okay. That's okay. I sent an updated. We'll make sure the updated one's in here. But we had to give them some parameters to work with. So this chart, and it will also be available for you in more detail, talks about the cost considerations when we're looking for costs at a very preliminary level. So, for example, option 1 and 4, because MSBA wants us to look at a repair for 325 students and a repair for 640 students recognized in the same building. So, but this gives you the detail. I don't know if you can scroll, just try to zoom in a little bit. I don't want to walk through. This will absolutely, it will be available and everyone can take a look at it afterwards, but it will give you the level of detail and the scope of work that we're applying to each of these options at this time. So for the code upgrade, repairs only, as I've mentioned, interior renovations, structural repairs, and equipment, right? And then if you scroll over, sorry, Christina, whether it's a renovation addition or new school, we took the space summary program, the gross square footage, and you'll see it applies across the top. As I mentioned, the renovation addition are slightly less efficient than a new school, so you'll see that square footage slightly larger than a new school, but it will show you the type of construction that we would be providing for a renovation addition or a new construction. The renovation addition includes, of course, bringing everything up to code. We'll space mine some of the existing spaces to meet your educational program. Requires structural repairs, interior finishes. For a renovation addition, we'll need a 3-story academic wing, so there will be a 3-stop elevator. envelope improvements. It will be totally up to code, and it would have all new mechanical systems. And then we went into detail what would be demolished as part of this option. The one over to the right goes, it's a little easier to talk through. It's a construction of a 2 or a 3-story building on the site while the existing school remains in operation. We've identified the base cost for a mechanical system as gas heat with electric cooling, providing alternatives for ground source heat pumps and geothermal wells. Standard conventional footings, meeting the energy code, so we know how much insulation is required. We know what the window-to-wall ratio would need to be. The envelope structure is really important as we make sure that we meet the energy code. And then there's, and we'll share with you, we have some site, very, very preliminary site designs to be sharing with you. So this, I don't want to go through all of them, but maybe just zoom out, and then we can just scroll through. We did this for each of the options, right? So you'll see some are redundant. And then what we had to do, if you look at the top of the screen, we actually had to do the same for Pine Glen. So when you look up at the top, it will say either at Pine Glen or Fox Hill. Very similar. There's just a little slight nuances when we look at a renovation addition at Pine Glen, but all very similar. We only have gross square footages and what we like to say kind of test fits of how the building may go together at this point in time. So now we'd really like to do. So maybe if you could zoom out a little, so you can see it. I can't. How do I close the screen? That's why I couldn't see these. That makes so much more sense. So now what we'd like to do is really just start talking about the options, right? Based on 325 students, or around 91,000 square feet of construction, or 640 students for approximately 155,000 square feet. It is going to be important that we understand the parking requirements. You have an incredible amount of staff to support these, the program and the students. So we did spend some time making sure that we had enough parking for everyone. I would like to preface that the circulation patterns internally, we actually met with our traffic consultants to make sure that it would mitigate some of the concerns and issues that are currently ongoing at Fox Hill. But these are, and you'll see they all look a little different, just to give people an idea that these are different ways that we want to continue to explore the options. Whatever you see here, I guarantee you, is not going to be the final design. I just want to make sure. But this, now we can really start talking about the future for Fox Hill. So this is option 1 and 4. You're going to see it looks exactly the same because it is. We're doing very little, bringing everything up to code, making sure it's accessible, and otherwise really not touching the site. The next option, again, MSBA asking us if a renovation, what a renovation and addition would do for the building, and is it a viable option? And I will say, many times it is, and many times it isn't. And the snowflake design that's single story is less than a desirable candidate for a true renovation addition. But we spent some time thinking it through, seeing how we could take advantage of the, I call them ears, of the site, of the building, what could really fit in those, and then, of course, just trying to maintain equity across all of the program spaces. Is that what's in orange would be the new construction, and that would be all of your academic spaces, so that they were all together and could benefit from the new spaces. But everything would be fully updated, full air conditioning, new roof, new everything. But being locked in where the existing building is, recognizing that we do have the site constraints, maybe you could just point, do you see where the buffers are? We just want to make sure that everyone, like, these buffers are like no-fly zones for us, so we just want to make sure that everyone sees that we have to manage and be respectful of the wetlands, the vernal pools. So those are sort of like our other constraints on the site. That this would be a little challenging to improve the traffic issues that are ongoing on the site. And then the next slide. So here are different ways of looking at a new school on the site. You can see dashed in red is the existing building. So the building can remain in operation while the new school is built. We heard people that can we look at a 2-story versus 3-story? So we're looking at different options of a 2-story or a 3-story in 2 different ends of the site. We think that's important, and it's really a local decision. What is important to you, natural resources or a 2-story school? They both fit. There are pros and cons to both. And what you'll see is if you start looking at the nuances of the different options, we actually tried to configure the parking and the roadway and the driveway slightly different so you can see, you almost can mix and match. And this is just the beginning. So our goal was to provide enough parking, be able to get all of the traffic onto the site, so that it does not back up into the neighboring streets. That once it's built and the new school is demolished, that you actually can see how much more space is available for community use, for fields, for trails, for many other community uses, and that we are reducing the carbon footprint and providing a state-of-the-art school that will meet the educational program. So these are just concepts to start thinking about as we want your input, and I promise the end result will not look like any of these, but it's just to start the conversation. If we go to the next slide. So actually, if you could just go back one more. So we actually have costs from the cost estimator based on a 2-story building, a 3-story building, right? Because that informs cost of the building, the footings, the square footage, the footprint, the site requirements associated with that, and then the varying available site for site amenities. So we will have costs for both a 2-story building and a 3-story building. And no decisions need to be made. We don't want decisions to be made right now. This is just informative as we start thinking about it.
I know I asked last time, and I think someone probably took a note on it, but I do want to make sure that when we're ready to talk about cost, that we talk about what it costs to knock down the building too, how much that would cost. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Yes. So we have the costs and all demolition and abatement has to be included, and MSBA does pay for that.
Okay.
So the only thing, wait, go ahead, say it. The only thing MSBA won't pay for are, say, ceiling or floor tile that may have asbestos that could have been easily removed over a summer, but they recognize you're not going to open all the walls and remove all different types of hazardous materials. So in theory, for the most part, they pay for 100% of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Can you also speak to the differences of the preferences for 2-story versus 3-story? Sounds like you started off with 3-story.
is there an architectural, an educational, or otherwise preference for one or the other?
It is a local preference.
I think there are people who are worried about safety for 3-story versus 2-story for kids getting out, I think is what the concern was.
I recognize the ask for a second story consideration. I guess from a designer's perspective, is there a preference educationally for 2 or 3 stories? You mentioned natural resources a moment ago as a reason for having 3 stories, makes smaller footprint, I imagine. But otherwise, besides that, are there other considerations for us to think about?
And we can get into that, and we're happy to really, again, I think it's a matter of what the priorities are. A lot of times, cost is a real motivator, and more compact, smaller footprint building provides that. A lot of times what we're finding is multiple story, more than 2-story building is actually a little more flexible in the end, and we'll get into floor plans and what that means as far as space relationships for vertical and horizontal collaboration between grades, and where do you put the entrance, where do you put your classrooms, how do they interact with each other, that type of thing. So yeah, I mean, we don't like to say here's the pros and cons, we'll say here are just facts. This one allows you to do this one allows you to do that. But we haven't had an opportunity, I should even say it differently, to do a 2-story school in a community for a really long time. They just haven't had the space. But there are other things to think about as well. Yeah.
Just adding on to that, I'm really happy to see that there is a 2-story option here. I know that was something I had asked you about in the last meeting. Looking ahead at option 6, I know we're not there yet, but I'm not seeing the 2-story option for the combined 640. I really just want to advocate for that as a teacher. I'm sitting at this table as a teacher at Pine Glen. I know that the MSBA focus is really efficiency, spending time on learning, and I know that vertical, going up a set of stairs, is a lot faster to get to a classroom. As a professional in education, I'm telling you that learning does not happen without that sense of community, so I'm really going to push and advocate for that. My classroom at Pine Glen is on the end of the hallway. I teach 5th grade. In order for my students to even get to my classroom entering the building, they pass kindergarten, 1st grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and then they enter my room. The conversations just in that passing you can't put a price on it. That's what builds our community. They're seeing friends from bus, they're seeing their friends' younger siblings, they're seeing reading buddies. That's what forms that sense of community, and you need that for learning. So I'm gonna continue to push for that.
Great.
And I really hope to eventually see that.
Right?
Yes, and I know George, he actually came to my classroom, so he knows exactly what I'm talking about. He made that venture down the hallway on the way back from special, so he saw the craziness that ensues, but I think that is so, so important, and I know the MSBA has their own priorities, but sitting here at the table as a teacher, we have to think about the kids, and I never want my own children to come home and say, how was your school day? Oh, it was so efficient, Mom. I got right to class. I want a little bit more than that. I want to know who they see, what conversations they had. We're not robots, we're kids.
Right. We'll get to option 6 in a minute. Yeah. So we'll continue to think about, and people here, you're all sitting around this table, thoughtful. We're looking forward to your input. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Maybe we haven't. So we do. I hope you know, we do hear you. It is your building. So as we start refining these and talking about how the flow of the building works, what goes where within the building, that's really important as we go forward. So then we do want to look at the next one, which we talked about 1 and 4 on the first slide. So as you start thinking about a 155,000 square foot building, it starts to change the narrative just a little bit. We again, recognize the amount of staff that you have to support these students, but with that comes the number of staff. So you need approximately 200 parking spaces when you think about a combined school. So we don't want to minimize that. We just want to make sure that we're as open about that. You'll see the differences in the size of the parking. It's rare. I'm going to say that I think there's one school that I know of at a high school level that actually put a parking structure. Typically, it's an extremely challenging and costly endeavor. So with that, this is all surface parking in a parking lot per se. This is a renovation addition for both schools. You'll see the 2 red arrows, which indicate there are 2 entries, one for Fox Hill, one for Pine Glen. If that changes and it's going to be one school, then there'll be 1 arrow. But we did start thinking about drop-off, pickup, how 2 schools would function, what doors did they go in, and addition renovation, given the site and the existing buildings right in the middle of the site. It isn't as flexible or ideal. Again, we still have the roadway going around the building, which would still, we've actually added some playgrounds inside the road going around the building so that students would not need to cross the driveway to get to play. But we can continue to talk about this option if it's so warranted. Option 6, to your point, it's 155,000 square feet. So right now we're showing it as a 3-story option. The footprint is extremely large. We can continue to explore this more, as we've said, understanding how the organization of this enrollment option 2 would really function. Like, that's going to be really important to understand better how these 2 schools function together, shared resources, and how that might fit and be informed by the site. So here's just 2 different ways of looking at this, trying to have the playgrounds and play areas surround and embrace the site with the parking in a way that we're still able to achieve some site amenities. And we have thought a lot about the traffic and bringing the cars in and the circulation in and around for drop-off and pickup, and separate bus loop from parent drop-off. So we're not presenting anything that we haven't vetted to make sure that at least it works. Is this the best solution? We don't know. We're here to hear your comments and feedback. But a 2-story school for 640 students, we'd have to spend a lot more time understanding what the relationships are to the shared resources to your administration and how that may work and what that may look like on the site. But we can continue to explore that. And then Pine Glen. So the good news is we don't have to look at Pine Glen for repair only, because Fox Hill is the designated school for MSBA. But we are looking at what a renovation addition could be at Pine Glen for 640 students. We actually have put a very large new wing kind of to the rear of the building. You can see the dotted red line, and then what's in white where it says Fox Hill is your existing building. So how we're thinking through this option was we would build the new Pine Glen with the associated core facilities, the gym, cafetorium, and library, all in the back. We would vacate Pine Glen. We would move everyone into the new wing. And then once everyone's in, we would demolish what you see dashed in and renovate that one bar of space. Once that's complete, the Fox Hill families would join the Pine Glen families on this site. This is a small site, so you can see the challenges we have with just accommodating the parking. And from what we can gather with all the information we had, there's really only one way in and one way out of the site, connecting to one main road. So, and then if we just go to option 8, a new school. This can also be done. As you can see, it would be really challenging to do anything but a 3-story building. We have the existing building that needs to be maintained and open while we construct a new school. This is a small site. When we start thinking about construction vehicles and construction and laydown space and all the other requirements associated with 155,000 square foot building, while also keeping the students and staff in the existing Pine Glen school. So this would be a phased construction. The site would be a phased occupied site as we did this. But once a new school is built, we would tear down the existing Pine Glen School, and you can see the parking requirements to support the number of staff that would be at this school. And then last but not least, I'll ask Steve and Christina to close their ears. We did just go a step further and wanted to share with you what a Pine Glen only school would look like on the Pine Glen site. Just for your information, as you start thinking about it, if this is only a Fox Hill school, what can be done to the Pine Glen school, right? So lots of assumptions here. It's based on 640 students. So Fox Hill has, but MSBA is 640. So Pine Glen, Fox Hill has 325. We just assumed the same number of students would be at Pine Glen. It's 3 classrooms per grade. But we know the educational program at Pine Glen, so we know it will meet the educational program. And this will give just food for thought and how a smaller school would fit on the Pine Glen site, so that if one decision is made, we want to make sure that it's a sound decision and something could be supported on this site. So this is about an 83,000 square foot building. It doesn't need as much space because lab program will be over at Fox Hill. But this is a 3-story. We could certainly explore a 2-story. 1-story would be challenging. Again, just recognizing the school needs to be occupied while construction is going on. So this is a tight site, but it's certainly achievable. We've done it much smaller. And the end result here is you actually achieve some nice play fields and, again, initial pass at parking, just making sure that we had sufficient space to support the staff and students in the building. So yes.
Before you move on, do all of these plans are they kind of set up so that if 20 years down the line, the increased enrollment that a lot of people are expecting happens, that there is room for expansion? So it wouldn't be part of this project, but it would be built so that there would be room for expansion. So do all of these various designs allow for that?
They will. I mean, these are really concepts, just seeing what direction people may like, and then we can continue to refine them. But yes, so.
And is that like one of the criteria that people are going to be considering? Like, for example, the Pine Glen site is much tighter, and if we wanted to put 640 students there, is there room? I mean, what would happen if we wanted to have room for an expansion, for example? That's just, I mean, so will that be a criteria that we are looking at?
I believe on the criteria matrix, there's a expansion category to be discussed. And, MSBA actually, as part of our submissions are going to be, where do you plan on expanding the building? So we do want to be thinking about that. We are very thoughtful. It's near impossible to assume you can add a floor to any building. It sounds silly, but for the number of times that you invest in the additional structure and everything else, codes change all the time, and then it renders it unable to. So we typically try to extend the buildings where we can, and so we're thoughtful about what components of the program go where, so that a logical growth could occur if needed. So I think, and then the last conversation is the criteria matrix. So do you want to take this? You want me to just keep going with it? Yeah, just okay. You guys are going to be so tired of listening to me. Okay. So, this is the criteria matrix. Someone had already requested that we freeze some panes on the Excel sheet so you can see the options as you scroll through. So thank you. And if there's anything, any other nuances or ways that we can help improve the use of the matrix, that would be great. This can be really a living document.
Yeah, and we also provided a PDF file as well, so that if you didn't want to fill out the Excel file, you're more than welcome to print it out, mark it up, or scan it, whatever I can do to help as far as getting your feedback for the matrix itself. That's why we sent out both the Excel and the PDF, and we'll update the Excel to have that frozen pane at the top for when you're scrolling through it.
My only question was, like, when you're filling this out, if there was able to have a pull down so you could just select the favorable, neutral, or unavailable instead of having to type something in every time. Or, I've dragged. I mean, I'd type in, like 2 initials and drag if I felt like it was all neutral or whatever. But I mean, it just would have been nice to have a.
We can try it.
Use copy paste.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I have struggled with Excel. It is not my friend.
I've already completed it.
Okay. Oh,
we can look at
gold star.
We can look at it and see if that's something that we can add right away.
Most of us have done it, but it was hard to do.
Yes, and that's why I was saying even just take a pencil and do a color in half, whatever.
I had to use letters because the dots wouldn't copy and paste.
See, I know.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Did you have a question to that, or just that was a suggestion? Thank you, thank you. So we just want to quickly we asked everyone to weigh in. We gave some suggestions under the criteria that we should be looking at as we start looking at the options. And what did you say? Fewer criteria. Yeah. And I think some of them will immediately come off the table, right? When you start looking at option 1 or option 4, it just doesn't meet your educational program, so you can immediately just stop there. But some of the other conversations.
Say that again? How we can rule out certain things?
Yeah, sure. If it doesn't meet your educational program, according to MSBA, it's a non-starter. I would just put unfavorable. And then you almost can pretty much stop there, because if it doesn't meet your ed program, we can't
So you don't have to go down the whole column?
You would not need to go through the whole column. That would pretty much render it.
Donna.
Doesn't.
So what's your guidance then for questions that don't have the information yet? So for example, project cost and the educational program, which we said wasn't posted yet.
So are we extending the time?
Well, so the goal is obviously for us to approve the PDP at our July 13th meeting. We have one more meeting scheduled between now and then, which is our June 28th meeting, and that's where we will roll out the cost estimate information, obviously, to you. And so we just need to get your feedback back in time in order for us to be able to compile the information together prior to the 7-11 meeting. So that way we're not coming to that meeting the first time reviewing the cost estimate information or the criteria matrix information. So we might want to look into scheduling another meeting prior to our approval so that way we can review the feedback and review it as a whole with the building committee.
But this criteria matrix isn't as important at preliminary design program as it will be when we're looking at the final option. So we can keep adding to this or subtracting from this as we start really looking into the remaining options that make the most sense, if that makes sense.
So to that point, the version that was sent to us last week on the 14th, or updated on the 16th, is missing option 4. Is that because it's just already been eliminated?
The one I'm looking at says option 4.
It's really different.
You sent out...
Yeah, it should have included option 4. I sent an original, oh, sorry, thank you.
There are 3 greens, 2 blues, and 2 yellows. So
Yeah, so the last one, is that the one from the 16th?
Yes.
It is the one from the 16th.
Yeah, the one I've got.
Complete.
Well, so here's my, we'll make sure that you have the most up-to-date.
Yeah, once we make the edits to the Excel file to include the scrolling and seeing if there's something that we can put on there for a filter to make it easy for each cell, we'll make sure that it includes option 4.
So we'll hold off on sending these until...
Yeah.
Because, I tried to fill it out as best I could based on the 23rd deadline date.
It's a working file, yes. And so obviously we want to get your feedback on, evaluating the different options itself. But again, it's not a requirement for us to submit it for the PDP. It's something that we'll further develop as we come to the conclusion of the preferred option.
It might just simply inform us that a couple of them are no longer require further consideration, but everything else can remain on the table. So even if you want to submit what you have, or we're going to roll out the costs at next week's, is it
Wednesday.
next week's?
Next Wednesday.
That yesterday killed me. That we can just hang on to it. When you have those costs, you can just finish populating it, if that makes sense.
Sorry, none of us were on that distribution list for that Excel file. It did go to John Lyons, it looks like, but
okay,
if the 3 of us can get added to that.
Yep, we'll make sure you're added to it.
Thank you.
Did you get the package for tonight?
I did, yes. But
Okay.
we all checked and did not have that.
Okay.
So.
Oh, go ahead.
Just a quick one. Can you treat empty cells as being neutral so we don't have to fill them?
Sure. Sure.
That'd be a lot easier. You just have to thumbs up, thumbs down.
Correct. That works. That works. Whatever makes it easier. There's a lot of criteria, and at this level where we are at the preliminary design, some may or may not really matter at this point. And what we can do as we start looking at options, whether it's for, I'm just going to pick on option 3, right, for a new school, we could take this criteria matrix as we look at the multiple options for option 3 and start weighing them against each other and maybe whittling down some of the criteria that don't apply. But it really should be used as a tool as we go forward. Yeah.
Before we get next week's information on costs and such, I mean, I don't feel it's even possible to answer the costs and schedule whole section or the construction impacts. How do we know what the construction schedule is? How do we make a determination on this? I mean, there's some things I see we can have a preference or a value choice, but there are certain things here we just don't have enough information yet. So I'm not sure why we keep getting this criteria matrix to fill out when we don't have all the information yet. Shouldn't we just wait till we get at least next meeting's information?
Yeah, I mean,
I know you want the feedback from us, and that's good.
yeah, I mean, the first step obviously was confirming that you agree with the information that is in the matrix. And so the next step is it's going to be a working document that's going to evolve over time, definitely as we're reviewing the different options. Given that we were going over the options for the first time tonight, we wanted to just review with you what the matrix looks like with the approved or the recommended criteria on the list, and then ultimately in the next couple of meetings you will start generating that. So let me get out a revised matrix to you that has the feedback that we talked about, and then we can talk about setting a date for final submission of the criteria matrix itself.
So we're going to submit our feedback, and then after we get new information, we're going to put new choices in, and you're going to redo the results? I don't understand. I really, if you could explain.
Yeah, I don't know, Donna, if you...
Can I just speak real quick?
Yeah.
Just process-wise?
I'm missing something.
Just to kind of bring it back a little bit process-wise, this is a tool to help kind of narrow down the options that are available. And we fully expect everybody to have different opinions on how to score or grade or fill out the matrix. It's really to help stimulate a conversation around which options sort of rise to top. Some folks might need to do this top to bottom to arrive at that conclusion. Other people might not need to look at this whatsoever.
Okay.
For instance, option 1 and 4, which is the renovation only, it doesn't meet the educational program. The existing building can't really support either enrollment, so I probably spent too much time talking about it already. So, I mean, we don't need any part of this matrix I don't think to come to any big conclusions like that. Process-wise in the PDP, we don't necessarily need to do this at all in terms of scoring it. The PDP is, generally speaking, to gather every bit of information and put that into a list of options to be studied further. And so all 9 of these options, or 8 of the options, without any further discussion with the building committee, we can submit to the MSBA. Of course, there's more detail to the binder that gets included. So of the 8 options, we're studying each one of them just as rigorously as the next. In the next phase, whatever options are submitted in PDP, we do a bit of a deeper dive. And that's when the matrix can really come in handy. We're really just trying to get a jump start on that process today.
So that's the question. So again, for the repairs, which we know doesn't work for us, do we have to fill that one out at all, or you just want us to put, unfavorable? I mean, that's can we leave it blank?
No, put unfavorable.
Or just unfavorable all the way down?
And just under ed program, that you can stop at ed program.
Ed program, okay.
Just stop. Again, when we look at this, it needs to meet the educational program, right? So it needs to be educationally sound, meet the educational program, and MSBA wants it to be a cost-effective solution.
Yeah.
So I appreciate everyone that has already started thinking about it. I think, to Steve's point, some are going to come to conclusions in a different way, by visually trying to anticipate what's coming. We did share these options very preliminarily, I think, last time anyway. So, but it really, I think we'll be able to collectively as a building committee agree which options either do not require further evaluation or conversely do require further thought and conversation after the preliminary design program. In December is when we need to submit our preferred solution to MSBA. So we have 5 months. I'm not going to say 6 months. I'll say 5 months to arrive at that decision, if that helps you. But if there's some categorically that don't meet your educational program, you can say NA.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So this criteria matrix is really to encourage a conversation amongst the board, right, about options that we would like to eliminate. Okay. And are any of these options going to officially be eliminated prior to the community forum in July? Because I know we have a meeting in between here, or is this just, we will fill this out, have a conversation, but all 8 options will still be on the board at that meeting?
At the community meeting, yes, we can wait until, and we did want to schedule, and we apologize, timing is everything, that we truly wanted a community meeting, which will roll out a lot of these options that we've done, very similar to tonight's meeting, but to hear their input.
Yes.
Before any decisions are made.
That's what I wanted to make sure of.
Yep. And again, at the preliminary design program, we're really only asking to remove which options just totally do not meet the educational program.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
One real quick comment. I think in terms of priority and spending time on filling out the matrix, I would suggest that people only fill out the parts of the matrix for which they think are important and leave everything else blank. So both negatives and positives. And then you won't spend time on things like cost that you don't know anything about. And you won't spend time on features that you think are unimportant or are not your personal emphasis. And then the team that's evaluating it will see the parts of the matrix that were deemed to be important by individuals, and they can shape that somehow.
Yeah, thank you. And we can continue to have those conversations. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we could get, there are people that have been waiting for 2 hours to say something because we have public participation at the end now. I'm wondering if we could get to them so they don't have to sit here all night.
And I'd like to suggest maybe moving it back to the beginning again, too, for future meetings, because it's too much.
And with regard to the public, I'm noticing, looking at our project site, looking at the Burlington Town calendar, looking at the Pine Glen calendar, I don't see the June 28th meetings listed or the July 11th community forum. Can we get those on the calendar?
Yeah, we're working on the 11th meeting now. The 28th will get on there when the agenda gets sent.
Yeah, even as a placeholder to save the date or something.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that there's a placeholder before we have a formal agenda.
I have a question.
I was going to say, I think that wraps up our presentation.
Oh, that's great.
I just, real quick, we do need to approve some invoices. Can we approve the invoices quickly in order then to go to straight to public comment?
We'll approve the invoices, and then the next topic will be public comment.
This is terrible.
Okay, so we have 4 invoices this evening. The first being Doran Whittier invoice number 8 in the amount of $30,062.50. It's our typical monthly invoice. We have Danisco's invoice
Do we
number.
need separate votes for each one? Okay.
Danisco invoice number 9817 in the amount of $29,545. Again, that is Danisco's typical monthly invoice. Then we also have Danisco invoice number 9818 for existing conditions survey in the amount of $39,934.08. And then the last invoice is Danisco invoice number 9819 and for the wetlands ANRAD in the amount of $445.50.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the invoices, the 4 invoices as just mentioned.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Bond?
Aye.
Mrs. Monaco?
Aye.
Ms. Simon?
Aye.
Mr. Brooks? Dr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Kasha?
Yes.
Mr. Cuna?
Yes.
Mr. Sagarino?
Yes.
Mr. Denizio?
Yes.
Ms. Priest?
Aye.
Ms. Bunker?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Madam I, 1300. All right, we can go to the public comment.
Good.
You have 3 minutes, okay? Go ahead.
Dennis Delory, 247 Fox Hill. I'm 3 houses from Westwood, 3 houses from the entrance into Fox Hill. I've had 55 years to study the traffic pattern. I'm not sure how long yours was, but I can tell you that the traffic pattern as it is right now is very bad. I have times I can't back out of my driveway. I have times coming down Donald Road trying to get to my house on Fox Hill. I have to come down the wrong side of the street to get on the wrong side of the street on Fox Hill to get into my driveway. If there's one car trying to come from, let's say, Westwood towards Skilton, it's gridlock. It's absolute gridlock. More attention needs to be paid to this. You're going to have more cars. You're going to have more people. You're going to have more problems. But there's a huge implication to this that I have never heard anyone on this panel discuss. Emergency vehicles. What if there was an emergency at Fox Hill School? With the traffic patterns the way they are, we've got to get fire trucks down Fox Hill with the bumps on the road, or go all the way around the town, come in Westwood, or come down Donald onto Fox Hill. My concern is the kids. From where my house is, I see the kids go by every day. I see them go to school. I see them come back from school. It's wonderful. I had 3 kids that went to Fox Hill. I've had 2 grandkids that went to Fox Hill. I care about all the kids. We all know there are some crazy things going on in schools all over the United States right now. And given the plan that I'm hearing, there is no way that emergency vehicles can get to Fox Hill School if there's a serious emergency. And that should be on your agenda.
Thank you.
Comment?
Thank you for your comment.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for your comment. We don't usually respond to public comment, but...
I'm not really responding, I'm just commenting. What you just mentioned is something that that I've been thinking about too. I know a lot of people that live in your neighborhood, and it's been running through my head, if there's a line of cars, how could you get an ambulance, a fire truck, during the time when people are going to school or leaving school? So I just wanted you to know that you're not the only one who has been thinking about that. I realize that's an issue.
That's arriving and leaving. What if there's a serious emergencies at schools all over the United States?
Or in the neighborhood. Right. I agree with you.
Something has to be put into the works to make sure that's covered. And that should be a priority. protect the kids.
Do we have other public comment? Mr. Eiler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Eiler, Town Meeting Member Precinct 6, which is directly affected by the project, obviously. So the School Building Committee has at least, 3 working groups now that I know of. In order to follow along, I had asked the town clerk where the minutes for those working groups were, and she determined that none of the meetings had been posted, nor were minutes posted for those meetings. In the opinion of our town clerk and town legal, the open meeting law was therefore violated, as these are subcommittees of a public body. The clerk contacted the chair and spoke with the OPM. The chair reported that there is some other legal opinion that the working groups aren't subcommittees. That doesn't make any sense to me, given that these are multi-member sub-bodies of a public body that are holding formal meetings created to advise and inform the larger public body. The term working group doesn't appear anywhere in the open meeting law that I can find, so it's not an exception to the open meeting law. It was good to hear that there is a commitment to now post these meetings and minutes going forward, but I think we still have some issues here. One is I think it would be very helpful to list all the subcommittees, or aka working groups, on the website so we actually know what they are. I just learned of a third one tonight. And list all the previous meetings that were not posted so that the public can catch up and find the minutes for things that they didn't know about. I did receive minutes for some of these. I have not received any minutes for the sustainability meeting, for instance, that happened on June 1st, apparently. So I would like to say, just in general, I didn't contact the Mass Department of Division of Open Government and file a formal complaint, because I'm not looking to get people in trouble here. I'm just trying to create truly open meetings and an open process. I find it ironic that when I spoke at a previous school committee meeting, I was chastised for not following the process. Yet here we have the open, not just process, but law that specifies very clear way that things should be done, and the committee seems to have gone out of its way not to follow it or find a way around it. I think in general, while folks are absolutely fine people here and I understand are trying to do a great job, I think that the unconscious bias is to controlling the flow of information and limiting public access, as for instance, putting public comment at the end of the meeting, as opposed to every other public body in Burlington, which puts it at the beginning. So I think in order to help build trust, it would be very beneficial to see a list of all these committees, the continued commitment to be posting these meetings and minutes, list all the members of these committees so we can understand what's going on, so that even people on the school building committee can decide to go to these meetings. I think that would all be very key to building trust, and I would encourage you to change your bias to let's think of ways that everything can be public, and instead of thinking of ways that some things can't be public. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Waddell?
Thank you, Mrs. Chairwoman. My name is Dave Waddell. I'm a Precinct 1 town meeting member and live on Barnum Road. I sat here a bit over a month ago and asked the school building committee and the school committee not to combine Fox Hill and Pine Glen schools on the Fox Hill property. Since then, there's been a steady stream of citizens from all over our community with the same request. The reasons are varied, from building safety to walker safety, busing duration, neighborhood traffic load, overall school size, and eliminating a community center point. I'd like to touch a bit more on student outcome. I'm not being nostalgic here either. There's a considerable amount of scientific peer-reviewed research into total school size and what's best for our youngest learners. D.T. Williams concluded that somewhere between 300 and 400 students is optimal for elementary schools. This whole subject is a deep well, but in general, smaller schools promote better student attitudes, better social behavior, better extracurricular participation, and interpersonal relationships. But it doesn't end there. Teachers have better attitudes and a stronger sense of personal efficacy in smaller schools. I think we heard that earlier today. The other aspect considered in this research is the concept of a school within a school, SWAS. The general view is this is simply a marketing gimmick and in practice doesn't work. It's a desperate grasp at returning to something more efficient and effective after the damage is done. So, hopefully I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I'm simply reminding you about what makes Burlington elementary schools work well within our community. I think you should consider this as you approach next week's vote on the PDP plans. This is the time to recognize that a 640 student school does not align with educational science or community values or provide the best education to our youngest students. This is the time to vote that proposal down and move forward with smaller school plan. I recognize this might be create some concern, but we've been reminded and assured at every corner by Ms. Dionisio that this is Burlington's decision, and we should move forward in this way, focusing on the efficiency of purpose rather than drawing out this community divide across the summer and into the fall. Why perpetuate the view that we will blow up our academic model, destroy a community center, and bus our youngest and most vulnerable students to a mega school stuck in a corner of town with limited access? This makes little sense. Vote yes on the 350 plan, vote down the 640 plan. Thank you.
Thank you. It's nobody on the WebEx, right? Oh, good, sir.
Hi, Don Doherty from Vincent Road. My daughter teaches kindergarten in one of the surrounding towns, and I talked to her today, and she said exactly what you said. Did you meet her? You know, it's listen to her. And the other thing I wanted to say is that as far as the safety, I was on Westwood the other day, and I was caught coming up the road, and I know because I live in Vincent, I said, I had the damn time. So all the school buses were going on the other side of the road. Come on up, come on up. They were all speeding up there to go to Fox Hill. I mean, where's the safety, you know? And the other thing that really got me going is that my house backs up to the Fox Hill. And about 2 weeks ago, I seen a guy in the woods. And I went out to ask him what was he doing. And he was doing a GPS on all the trees back there and spraying them. I said, why are you spraying these trees? He said, well, they have to come down from the new parking lot. I said, what parking lot? He says, the parking lot is going to be extended. And all these trees are gone. That's 20 feet of the woods gone. And my house backs up, there's probably 40 feet. And that's 20 feet that's gone. And I was out there today doing yard work, and I was looking at it. And I said to myself, if they're going to extend the parking lot, that means they have to build a 20-foot wall, backfill, I don't know how many yards or tens of thousands of yards of dirt, and then to pave it. And it will have this nice wall to look at. You know, it'd be nice, it'd be beautiful. Oh, I mean, no one's ever talked about all the trees to be cut down and everything, and I don't know why. You're talking about green space and stuff today, but there's going to be a lot of damage done to the woods. So, that's it.
Sir, I'm sorry. I don't normally respond, but I just feel it wasn't anyone with our project that was saying we're taking down any trees, no decisions. We had someone out doing a survey. Those are the only people, them and flagging the wetlands. we're the only people that we're aware of that have been on the site. We never would be out there flagging to demolish or take down trees without the full body much further
Come
down
out to my
the road.
property, 3 Vincent Road, walk right into the backyard, stand there at the edge of the woods and look a little bit to the right, and you see all the dots, dot, 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 dot. And he says they're coming down.
Then it wasn't from us.
So how could we find out?
I have no idea what conservation could be doing either. We don't paint trees. We flag them. So I just want you to know, it really wasn't. It wasn't. So I don't blame you for that. Is not us.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're so far from making any kind of decision, and it would be all discussed and presented to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
okay.
All right,
I just want to make sure it's not us.
Okay. Thank you for that response.
Sure.
Right. Keep up the good work.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Wendy Berkeley. I work at Pine Glen as an occupational therapy assistant. I also had 2 kids go through the Pine Glen school. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but as I was sitting here, I guess might as well ask them. They're kind of small details, but thought I'd bring them up. I was curious about when you're at the decision-making point about the new spaces, does the architect or designer meet with the people who will be using these spaces? Because I've been a part of that in the Newton Public Schools, and it's a key piece to making the new spaces make sense. So I wanted to know about that. And then with the criteria matrix, I was confused about who gets access to make those decisions. Is it just the board, or is it open to the public? And then the last one little point that I've heard over and over, when the kids from elementary school in Burlington move up to 6th grade, I know plenty of the teachers in the middle school, and they might be biased, but they all mention that Pine Glen kids are the best behaved and the nicest children. And I have to believe it has something to do with our small community and our amazing teachers. So that's my 3rd point, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you answer those 2 questions?
We can get back to her on the questions.
The staff, you're asking if the staff had input. And yes, there's been long vision and revision.
No, we were not speaking.
No. So the question was, once a decision is made and when we start designing the spaces, when we start designing the spaces, will we engage with the staff at their level? And I just think that the intent of public comment, I'm sorry if I'm speaking out of term, is just not to respond, but yes, as in Newton, we would do the exact same thing here.
Okay. Yeah, and just the criteria matrix, who does that?
That is the building committees.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Christina, do you want to just show the next meetings?
Our next meeting is June 26th. We'll be meeting with the school committee at 7 o'clock to approve the educational program and space summary information. We'll be then meeting with the building committee on June 28th at 6 p.m. That will be when we review the cost estimate information along with the options and the criteria.
Christina, can I just jump in? Those are Monday and Wednesday of next week, so they're off. All of our normal Tuesday nights. Monday is regular school committee. Wednesday is school building committee.
Correct. Thank you. And then July 11th will be our second community meeting, and that will be at 7 p.m. That will be virtual for this second community meeting, but we will go through an update of the concepts, the options, the criteria, and pricing information. And then July 13th is our building committee meeting at 6 p.m. To approve the PDP submission to MSBA.
Any other questions or comments?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
When the education program gets posted somewhere, can you notify everyone?
Yes.
And just, I don't think we took a vote, or I don't remember if we took a vote to change the public comment to the end of the meeting versus the beginning, but if we do need to vote on that, I'd like to propose that we move public comment back to the beginning for our future meetings.
Okay. We can have a conversation. We had, it was at the advice of the project manager, just we had too many questions during the meeting, so felt it was better to have it at the end so that the information was provided throughout the meeting and that folks could ask questions after versus not having any option to ask questions. Okay.
I think there are a lot of people in town that are really interested in this project. And I think, I don't know, maybe we don't do it even at school committee anymore. We used to have it both the beginning and the end. But I think to have people in the neighborhood who come out like this gentleman did tonight and sit here for 2 hours when all he wanted to do was make a point, I just don't think that's fair to the community members. And I agree with Catherine that we should allow people to speak at the beginning.
Okay, Jen.
I've taken the open meeting law class with the town council and Amy, and the not responding to the public comment is part of not violating open meeting law. If it's not been posted, we're not supposed to be discussing it. So I just want to point that piece out for people. It's not that we're being rude and we don't want to answer you. Your neighbor might have wanted to be involved in that conversation, so we don't respond to it. It gets put on the next meeting agenda, and then it gets responded to then, so the entire public is aware of the question and get to hear the answer to that and get to speak if they have concerns around that piece. So it's not like we're trying to ignore people, but it's just part of open meeting law not to respond to public comment.
Margot.
So my question is unrelated to all this. Now that we're getting into the voting portions on things that are going to be submitted for this program, I think it would be very helpful for the community as well as anyone involved in this process to understand what these votes actually mean towards the end goal, as far as like whose votes are the final decision on this project. Like we are, as a board, are going to vote. Does the school committee then have a secondary vote, and then it has to go to town meeting, Ways and Means? Like, if someone could lay out that process for everyone involved, including the town members who have a vested interest in this, of course, I think that would be helpful so they're understanding what our role is as a school building committee in the ultimate final decision.
Sure.
So again, do we have to take a vote if we want to go back to
don't need to
changing
take
it?
a vote.
Okay.
Would you like to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.